All right. What's up, YouTube? What's up, YouTube? It's your boy JFlood201, and I'm back with some news updates for all of y'all coming out of New Jersey. All right. So, if you guys are from Jersey, like I am from originally, you've definitely heard of the PERNAs. All right. Especially in my age group. I'm in my 30s. Okay, Big Joe PERNA is a Lucchese crime family associate. I believe he's a made guy. We're going to look at this. So, Lucchese crime family, New Jersey faction. The Lucchese crime family is one of the 5 families. All right, the crime family and their New Jersey crew is mostly here in North Jersey. All right, there's some parts middle and, basically, it's from Middlesex County and up. So Essex, Morris, Bergen, Passaic, Sussex. Anyway, so Big Joe PERNA. He's got cousins, sons, and growing up, I wrestled. So I was a wrestler in high school and stuff like that. His son was a big wrestler in the state of New Jersey. The PERNA family, they always sent their kids to wrestle. On that, they've also been arrested a number of times for racketeering, for mob adjacent criminal activity, intimidation, fraud, that sort of stuff. Here, let's click on Big Joe PERNA. The current captain of the New Jersey faction, he served as acting capo after George Zappola. His father, Michael J. PERNA, was a powerful member in the New Jersey faction before his death. On November 10th, 2007, PERNA was inducted in the Lucchese family along with his cousin, John PERNA. John PERNA is the guy who was the wrestler inside the Toms River home of his cousin, Joseph M. PERNA. All right, so there's John and Joe. On 11th, 2025, PERNA, identified as captain, was charged with along 38 others with racketeering, gambling offenses, money laundering, and other crimes. All right, now that was back in April. All right. Since then, we've had some new arrests. All right. If you're not familiar with the PERNAs, you're not really a Jersey savvy individual, you know what I mean? Growing up in New Jersey, doing wrestling, knew somebody who knew them, or you followed it in the news, or you were at a tournament, you got to meet him, so you walked over to him and hey, how you doing? Oh, listen, hey, shook his hand or whatever, that sort of a thing. You paid respect to these guys because they were good wrestlers, and then also because of what they represented. They represented Italian working class New Jersey families that had worked their way up to the upper echelons of society, in the sense that, living in areas like Toms River, that's an expensive area near the shore, right? Bergen County, that's an expensive area, okay? They pulled themselves out of poverty and working class into this upper working class or middle class, upper middle class society that we all kind of exist in. Growing up in North Jersey, especially if you're familiar with the Italian families there and the Irish and Italian guys, me being on the Irish side of that. Really what it is you were either a cop, a firefighter, a criminal, or you took over your father's construction or landscaping business. And if you were one of those things, maybe a teacher, right? You could become a teacher too. And those were good jobs to have, right? And if you knew somebody in one of the unions, that's even better because you could get right in there, But yeah, so here we go. Just to talk about it a little bit. Among the athletes who participated in the PERNA sports gambling ring were former Rutgers University recluse Michael Setta, very famous if you're familiar with the wrestling scene here in Jersey. He's won an NCAA state championship for New Jersey. Nicholas Ramo. What's interesting to me is that is that these guys recruited within their circle of friends. So like it'd be the same as like if me and some of my buddies who grew up wrestling together, right? Not to like name drop, but like, you know, if some of the guys from, let's say, like Tenafly or Bergenfield or something like that from the wrestling team got together and pulled a job, right? Pulled like a little job, or we had like a little gambling ring going on. We were taking bets. Now, taking bets has always been illegal, but it's being more enforced now because the state sees a lot of tax money from that. Gambling is legal in Jersey. Sports betting is legal in Jersey, okay? Also, something that's interesting is that, you know, Joseph Merlino, they just, Netflix just did a special on Joey Merlino, who's the big boss out of Philly. He's a known associate and a good friend of the PERNAs, all right? So let's go ahead, let's get into the news clip. You know, a lot of indictments and arrests being made, but what I find interesting about this is, like I gave that little intro, that little 5-minute intro, is that, you know, the PERNAs and all these people, we've known about them for a long time. Like, everybody knows the PERNA family. Everybody knows that they're linked in with the mob and the mafia and stuff like that. But, like, we also understand that, like, they have a lot of legitimate business. And, you know, they're a sports family. They're, like, part of New Jersey culture. The same way that, like, Sopranos is. The same way that, like, you know, Atlantic City. The same way, like, the Jersey Shore is. Like, these are families that almost go hand in hand with these kind of, like, cultural identities, right? That New Jersey has and as part of the Garden State. Yeah, and shout out to Chris checking in the chat. Definitely, if you're in the chat, leave a comment or say something related to it. If you've ever met one of the PERNAs, or, you know, because I do believe they went to, like, Catholic schools. So if you went to one of the Catholic schools and stuff like that, you definitely wrestled, or definitely wrestled against a, like, Bergen Catholic, or, like, you know, Don Bosco, St. Joe's, St. Benedict's, what's the other one? The one that's more in, like, the middle of New Jersey, Red Bank Catholic, you know, things like that. All right, but let's get into the news clip and let's see what's going on. But like I said, what's interesting about this is that they recruited from, like, their kids. Like, it's through the father and through their cousins. It's like a family lineage, and it's almost inherited. Like, you know, if you're part of the PERNAs, that you're going to get up to some sort of criminal activity at some point in your life. And you're going to make money off of it, because a lot of this centers around how much money these guys were bringing in and how young they are. How these guys are college-age athletes that are, like, staples of New Jersey athletic associations, and, you know, you know, they're in the paper for achieving things through athletics, and now they're in the paper for getting arrested and having these federal indictments handed down. And it's almost right out of an episode of The Sopranos or something like that.
The announcement of this indictment made by the New Jersey Attorney General here in Newark, which is the home of Port Newark also, where apparently this illegal gambling ring got started, and it is also where crime families are active, according to prosecutors.
Organized crime families seem to have a hard time breaking this old habit, so we're going to break it for them.
New Jersey's Attorney General talks about what investigators call a mob-related sports betting crime ring.
So there's Big Joe PERNA, brother of John PERNA. Oh, I think John is still in there. Joe, I think he's still in jail. And then, so let's go back to this. All right. There's Big Joe. There's his son, Joseph. Okay? These are Joseph's friends. And, like, high school buddies and, like, college buddies. Most of them are, like, on the wrestling team or the football team with him. And look, they even got their moms into it, because the moms are probably either helping them wash the money or are doing the record keeping for the sports betting. And I just find this whole thing extremely fascinating, because, I mean, everybody, you know, knew somebody in high school that if you wanted to place a bet or if you wanted to go to a poker game or something like that, you talked to them. And these were also the kids that, you know, before marijuana was legal, you'd ask them where to find some pot if there was a big party coming up on the weekend. So it seems like these guys, for what, to be honest with you, is like innocent in a way, low-level criminal activity that doesn't really get enforced by like New Jersey state troopers and stuff like that, because honestly, it's more or less a victimless crime. They're crimes of opportunity. They're crimes of modality that really only relate to opportunistic money-making schemes. Everybody knows somebody in high school who wants to place a bet, let's say March Madness, right? We're approaching the season. Basketball, right? It's November now. We're going to be watching the NFL. We're going to be anticipating college basketball in the future, right? When we get closer to springtime. And it's one of those things where, like, I remember making brackets in high school. Most people did it for fun, but there was always one group of kids that was like $15, $20 buy-in. You know what I mean? Let's see who wins it. And usually it's conducted like that. This was that kid in high school, and he's gone on and he's graduated from like that level of things where it's like nobody cares, nobody wants to enforce it. It's just boys being boys. Maybe he's selling some pot here and there, to now he's getting his friends, they're recruiting their buddies, and they're taking big bets. They're taking, you know, oh, hey, do you want a line of credit, right? Like they're really starting to break into that sports betting thing where it's there's a lot of money to be made, and they're going to talk about that in the news clip, because I believe this was like a multi-million-dollar ring. And it makes sense, because if you're tapped into universities, if you're tapped into the Rutgers campus, if you're tapped into Montclair State, if you're tapped into NYU, if you're tapped into, you know, Stevens Institute up there in Edgewater, right? If you're tapped in with the Rider University, or St. Peter's, right? Or you know, Seton Hall, right? You're a college athlete at Seton Hall, right? You're gonna know kids that have access to money through their parents, through grants, through student loans, all that type of stuff. And some of these kids, I mean, betting now is like a huge trend amongst the Gen Z guys, I've noticed. And it's also really like, it's being promoted all throughout our society. The same way that they used to do beer ads during football, you're now seeing, you know, DraftKings and all this stuff. FanDuel, right? It's a huge part of the money-making scheme of capitalist America in the new century, in the year 2025, 2026. These people were smart enough to cash in on it, but the state isn't seeing those tax dollars. And so they're starting to really crack down on rings like this. But if you look at it, look at the age of these guys. These are high school and college kids. Most of them were good kids, college athletes, high school athletes, taking direction from the son of a literal known mafia-made member and somebody who has a federal record, right? And it's crazy how much influence somebody like Joe PERNA, Big Joe PERNA, can have over some of these younger guys that grew up watching Sopranos, that grew up, you know, fantasizing about this lifestyle. I mean, I myself, right, to this day am guilty of that, of like admiring the mafia, of having this mystique and nostalgia about like crime families here in Jersey. And, you know, as I said, they garner a lot of respect here in the middle class community, because we all want to be making $1 million. We all want to do better for our family and push that Mercedes or have that bigger house. You know, it's just part of the American dream is to do well. And when you come from a working class background, you know, when you grew up, as I said, your choices were firefighter, cop, you know, teacher, or criminal. A lot of these guys, right, or landscaper and construction guy, right? A lot of these guys, some of them choose those first four, but we always admire the guy who chose the criminal path and was able to make money doing it, live a certain lifestyle, and avoid incarceration. But let's hear the rest of the news clip. They're talking about the Port of Newark. They're talking about how Newark is the hub for a lot of these crime families, the Lucchese crime family, of course, the DeCavalcante crime family. We watched an arrest come down earlier this year of one of the known DeCavalcante members, a father and son duo also, Joseph Merlino, who's tapped in with parts of New Jersey because of the proximity to Philadelphia, the Philly mob don. Just had that Netflix special released on him. He now lives in Florida, but let's watch the rest of this, okay?
Ring that processed and profited from some $2 million in illegal bets involving college sports. Detectives from the AG's office, New Jersey State Police, the FBI, and other agencies say that Lucchese crime family soldier Joseph PERNA advised his son, also named Joseph PERNA, in a gambling ring that began in New Jersey port facilities and spread. It focused on college sports. A dozen other people, including college athletes potentially participating in sports for which they solicited illegal bets, were involved, say investigators, who also say that both the wife and the ex-wife of Joseph PERNA were involved, helping to cover up the illegal gambling. Alleged ring members face felony charges of racketeering, conspiracy, gambling offenses, and money laundering.
Subject to 10 to 20 years in state prison.
That's the word from prosecutors like her, who also point something else out. Sports gambling is legal in...
So this is crazy. This is where the whole mob title comes into play, because you're not getting... what's up, David? So if you go back to the beginning of the video, you'll kind of see an explanation. There was a big bust involving the Lucchese crime family here in New Jersey. And if you're not from the Northeast, then just keep in mind that the PERNA family is well known here in New Jersey as a Lucchese crime family associate or a mob-adjacent family. They're not a crime family themselves, but they essentially are. They're a New Jersey crime family. Anyway, we're going to get back to the video, but we got a lot of student athletes being busted along these Lucchese crime family members in what is a sports betting ring. The federal government and state governments are cracking down on these sports betting rings. We've seen the NBA busts with the NBA coach, right? We've seen some going on in New York, and now we're seeing them going on in New Jersey as well, because they want those tax dollars. As they're going to talk about here in the video, sports betting is legal in the state of New Jersey. However, if you're conducting your own gambling ring, your own sports betting, enterprise, none of those tax dollars are going to the state, and so they're going to come down and they're going to arrest you.
Legal in New Jersey, online and in other forums, just not this one by any means.
Any college student listening, yes, you can. If you're of age, you can gamble on your phones if you're in the state of New Jersey. You should not be gambling in a mob-backed operation. That's free parental advice.
Again, the Attorney General saying that the Lucchese crime family involved in this gambling ring, you may recall that is the same organized crime family mentioned in relation to an NBA-related gambling ring in New York that involved Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups and players Damon Jones and Terry Rozier. I asked the Attorney General if there might be some connection. His response: this is still under investigation.
At Empire Mazda of Greenbrook, everybody drives. Whether you're looking to purchase a new or used Mazda.
Okay, so very interesting stuff. They talk about it here. We could watch the full video or the full interview. I'm not
the announcement.
I'm more interested in breaking this down for the audience, okay? So, we got Big Joe PERNA, a Lucchese crime family member, a made member of the Lucchese crime family. a well-known staple of New Jersey crime and sports betting and, you know, mob-related activity here in the Garden State. Everybody knows the Pernas. His brother John Perna is still in federal custody, and John Perna's son, I also believe, was involved. So now it is 2 generations. You've got a brother duo, both in federal custody, and now you've got both sons of those brothers who are going to be in at least state custody. As you see, the son of Joseph Perna, who's also named Joe Perna, is essentially the leader of this college-level gambling ring. Michael Setta is a Rutgers Division I athlete. I believe he's a coach right now, but he could be still enrolled at Rutgers University. I'll have to check that out. But I do know that Michael Setta used to wrestle for Rutgers University here in New Brunswick. And, you know, he won a state title. I even believe that he might be from either Don Bosco or Bergen Catholic. I'm not sure. I do know that he went to a prestigious high school. You've got some people here from the University of Rutgers, and you've got some high school associates of Joseph Perna, who's taking directions from his father on how to operate this illegal sports betting ring so that they can take on bets, give lines of credit, and collect money from other student athletes, other university students here in the Garden State, and probably, you know, adjacent PA, Connecticut, New York, who knows. It does seem like it is pretty localized, though, so I would imagine that most of the universities involved or the students involved were here in New Jersey. That's the breakdown. That's kind of the takeaway here. All of these people on the board have been arrested. So all of these people were taking bets from other people, because simply gambling, I don't think, is enough of a crime to get your face on the board. I'm not sure. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. But I would imagine that if your only crime is betting through illegal means, now that it's legalized, you're going to cooperate, you're going to cut a deal, and you're going to feed the people up the food chain to these law enforcement officials. They got both the wives trying to hide the evidence of the sports betting ring. So, of course, that is guilty by association, and which is why they're on the board. Very interesting stuff coming out of New Jersey. You know, if you're more interested, go to the Wikipedia page. You know, the Lucchese crime family, New Jersey offshoot, right? Check that out. This is the New Jersey faction of the Lucchese crime family, known as the Jersey Crew, has a rich history of organized crime, including drug trafficking, extortion, and illegal gambling. That's what they have been indicted for recently here. All right, but that's it. This is JFlood201 Reacts. You know, I like to keep you up to date with what's going on here in the Garden State and in the Northeast in general. Definitely interesting stuff. Shout out to Chris. Shout out to David. Thank you for tapping in and using the chat. You know, I'll be writing back to you guys in the chat. Leave a comment. Leave a like. Tell somebody else about the video. Go ahead and share this, you know, with a friend who finds this type of stuff interesting. Sports betting, you know, has a long and rich history here in the Northeast, certainly in the Garden State with the Sopranos here in real life, as you can see, right? DeCavalcantes, Lucchese, Genovese, they all have factions here in New Jersey, and it's very interesting stuff. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video.